Peppermint.
Bob.
Hey, everyone. So you're on the Black Queer Town Hall YouTube page.
Yes, you are.
And Pep and I have decided to start having some monthly discussions with ourselves, with other people. And we're so lucky to be able to do our first one in person.
Yay. I mean, usually we would be doing something remote. And y'all are used to that, though, because it is, post-COVID.
Yeah. Well, post-lockdown.
Yeah, it's post-lockdown.
Yeah.
That's fair. And so we do want to make sure that we're more active on the page. So this is our way of starting. We want to invite you first to not only subscribe, but also share this video and the channel, because we're going to be doing some really great conversations coming up. And some of them are going to be stuff we've always wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And some of them are going to be stuff that is happening right now.
So think of it as a monthly podcast type talk show moment.
Yeah. There'll be guests sometimes.
You're talking about current events. First of all, how have you been?
I've been really good. I don't know when y'all are seeing this, but it is like a hell of a summer. This is like last year, 2021 was like, okay, lockdown-ish, post-lockdown-ish. This is like for real.
We're back.
We are back.
Guess who back in the
If
house?
you ain't ready.
Yeah, get ready. Yeah. Like, guess who back in the house? Also, I was going to say real quick that Pep and I, first of all, I am extremely congested. Like, your girl is like, girl, allergies have gathered me like
down
like a cheap chignon, and I am dangling by a thread. But Pep and I went and saw A Strange Loop on Broadway.
Oh my gosh. Now, by the time you all see this, you would have known that hopefully they've won all the Tonys.
When is Tonys?
The Tonys is next week, I think. And hopefully you would have seen them celebrating their many, many wins. I think 11
nominations.
Yeah.
And already won the Pulitzer.
Yeah, already. And so,
And, that's in the ranks with Angels in America. Also a Pulitzer, two-time Pulitzer Prize winning show.
That
is
very high.
I
Even
think-
all the nominations.
I think Angel in America won. I think each version of Angels won a Pulitzer. I think. Maybe we can fact check that. And also Hamilton. So
it's rare.
So when it talks about Pulitzer Prize winning plays, these are
major.
big shows.
Yeah, they don't have like Pulitzer Prize awards for a bunch of plays. Like, it's going to be one play a year that gets nominated for Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, and it was so. This is I'm telling y'all, this is if you're a Black queer person. This is Black Queer Town Hall. If you're a Black queer person,
this is the show for you. And when I say for you, I mean for you.
Yes, it is. Woo.
It's Black and queer and very wild, to the point where there was some. It's one of them things that you're sitting in the audience and not expecting to laugh the way that you're laughing, and then you turn around and you look because there's people who don't have the same experience.
Why y'all laughing? Why these white folks
laughing?
Why you laughing?
Why you laughing though?
What are you saying, Jacob? The only 3 musicals ever have won the Pulitzer.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's Hamilton, A Strange Loop, and what else? Next to Normal,
yeah, which was brilliant.
It's really rare for a musical to win a Pulitzer Prize. This is absolutely congratulations to Michael R. Jackson, the entire cast. Shout out especially
the producers, because I know that they're like, I'm sure that
RuPaul's a producer. Alana Glazer's a producer.
I'm talking about the producers who came on later.
Oh yeah,
to get it to Broadway, because I know that they were like, I don't know what this is gonna do, and it's paying off.
12 years this show's been in the making.
12 years.
Yeah. I think actually they said he started writing like 20 years ago. They started workshops, I think, 12 years. Don't fact check any of this. But anyway, congratulations to Michael R. Jackson. Especially a big shout out to my friend John Andrew, who is like one of my oldest friends in New York City. Imagine my shock when I opened the program and I see a picture of John Andrew. And I said, oh my God, this is my friend is in this Broadway show making his Broadway debut. So proud.
I want to also say to people who do have the opportunity to go and see Broadway shows, there's been a lot of talk these days about the types of shows that are being brought to Broadway. There are a lot of them that are like movies that are turned, like popular movies that are like turned into
Pretty
musicals.
Woman,
Pretty Woman,
Beetlejuice.
and everything. And I'm not mad at a jukebox musical. I was in one, but it is great.
Oh my God, imagine you're out here coming out publicly against jukebox musicals. Head over heels found like the Go-Go's are like,
what is going on with this bitch? But it is very.
But it was an original musical, though. I mean,
it was originally,
but the musical, the show
play
was.
It is. The story was, and so, but to see an original musical with original music about something so Black and queer, it's just refreshing to have that kind of content. And so, if you are able to get to Broadway, I'm sure you have time because the show's going to be on for at least a year.
Trigger warning: it is confrontational.
It is quite
controversial.
Woo!
It is confrontational, controversial. It is. It can be triggering, but wonderful. It is a very good show. 10 out of 10. Recommend you go see it.
And thank you for taking me to see it.
Oh, my pleasure. I called Pep. I was like, Pep. I landed. I was like, Pep. I just landed in New York City. Let's go see a show tonight.
And I was like, bitch, I just landed in New York City. Okay.
Yeah. So we went down there. It was so much fun. So again, big congrats to everyone. How you been, by the way?
I've been really good. You know, I've been super busy. I had a little bit of breakdown the other day in the hotel. I was just feeling overwhelmed because
you cried?
I cried. I was a little emotional because God. Because I was feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, like with all the things that are on my plate. You know, it's been a lot. This comedy special, my tour.
Oh, they know about the comedy special?
Y'all, I'm doing a comedy special. I haven't really talked about it because I just booked it.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a comedy special. It's in New York. If you're going to be in New York mid-June, then you should go. And if you're going to be anywhere in any major city in the United States, coastal major cities, and Chicago during the month of July, please go to my website, peppermintonline.com, and get yourself a ticket to my tour. It's going to be the heartbreaking moment of Peppermint.
It is a really gorgeous show. I saw it at Joe's Pub in New York City, and I was very lucky to. You know, I travel around to see people's shows. Like I will fly.
I will fly to go see. I've flown to see a couple shows. I flew to see Bianca.
Where
I flew in wherever she was when. God, where were we? I flew and took my friend. I don't remember what city she was in.
I just flew.
It was some random. It was like a city that I wouldn't normally be in.
I just flew to see Alyssa's show.
It was in Texas. It was Austin, Texas.
I flew to Austin. Just flew to Austin to go see Alyssa Edwards in Austin, and I flew one time to Portland to see Kim in a Peaches Christ show.
I love Peaches Christ.
Yeah, we love Peaches Christ. We love Peaches Christ. Yeah, it is stressful. The news feels scary.
It is scary. This is the thing. I don't know. There is certainly that like element of when we talk about you know, things happening in the news, things happening online, things happening that seem to be happening more and more. And there's like that question: is it just happening more, or are we just seeing it more? Because there's videos, there's more record of it. We are more connected, you know. But I really do think we are kind of coming. We're coming to a point where, since people are more aware of different types of identities and ways that people identify, there is more of a backlash happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I have kind of this fear, and I honestly feared this when there's always a swing. So like George Bush gets elected, and then the liberals are like, we can't have this. And then it swings, and then Obama gets elected. And then Obama has 2 terms, and then the conservatives got.
And before George Bush, it was Bill Clinton getting blowjobs and the thing, and they were like, "We definitely can't have this."
And before him, it was
George Bush.
It was Bush. So it just sort of like Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. So it literally just swings back and forth. And I think what happens is the party that has the presidency kind of gets like, we got it.
We did it. We're done.
We got it. You know. And we're good, and then the party that feels disenfranchised, they really get a fire lit under their ass, and they really go fucking vote.
But what ends up happening is now we have these tools that we didn't have during any of those presidencies.
Yeah,
the internet, which we obviously had the internet, but like the way that people are able to use the internet and use the media is used differently as a tool than it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It used to be something trusted. It used to be something that was generally a check and balance on the system of government. And it still is those things, but it's also used promotionally. It's also for profit more these days. And so I just think that there's a distrust among certain groups of the media in general, which I think even the media has expanded. The media used to be film,
TV.
television, and a newspaper.
Yeah.
Now it's radio, it's podcast,
Twitter,
it's YouTube,
TikTok.
it's Twitter, it's TikTok, it's any of that stuff. And I think people are
Do you remember the idea of getting your news on Facebook seemed wild? Do you remember that?
getting what on Facebook?
Getting your news from Facebook. That was like, it was like,
yeah.
it was
Now
like
it's like
radical,
standard.
wild, and like what? But then now all of the actual media outlets have TikTok accounts. They have Instagram accounts. They have Twitter accounts.
Yeah, Facebook and all, and that's like, yeah. And so the definition of media has changed so much,
Right.
And also, since the definitions opened up, and now, like you said, these outlets are moving to the regular, like to social media and all these things.
Yeah.
It really opens up a chance for fake news to happen, for misinformation,
lies,
to happen, for lies and deceit to come through, lies and Manelli,
yeah,
coming strutting on through.
And I think that there have been, and now obviously there's a very large discussion about gun control in the United States of America, which is a really like. I think there's like, I think 3 countries that have gun laws as loose as we have here in America. And I think America's one of them. Can you look it up, baby? I think I feel like it's like America, I think like Colombia.
It's probably somewhere in South America.
Yeah, I think it's like America, the United States, Colombia, and like
which
one
is
of
still the Americas.
Yeah, U.S., Colombia, and like one other. And it's like only 3 states have like this liberal of, and you know they talk about the gun show loophole, which says that you do have to,
by age, there's lacking of age, lacking of background check, lacking of red flags.
Only thing you have to have is money.
Yeah,
if you go to one of these gun shows, because they're just private people
selling their wares. It's basically like an antique show.
It's an antique show. It's a traveling thrift shop, but they're Glocks,
and Uzis,
assault rifles.
Excuse my language. We want to get Uzis are like, you can go and get something that really could just kill at least 20 people before anybody can do anything about it.
Well, the machine shoots 5 bullets a second.
It's a machine gun.
Yeah,
it's a damn machine gun.
It shoots 5 bullets a second, and everyone's talking about the Second Amendment rights, and I think it seems pretty clear that when this amendment was written, there were no assault rifles, and there were no, back when this was
people
written,
were not there was not even a way for the founding father. You could not go through and spray the scene.
It took 3 minutes between reloadings.
You do
one shot, and then you have to wait 3 minutes
to get your
and then
for a musket or whatever it was.
Drop it,
I mean, they were literally using a musket.
Yeah. And also, I mean, part of me is like, they're like, I have a right to protect my family. Like, what if they always say from a tyrannical government. And I'm like, baby, listen, if the local police department turned their full force on you, you wouldn't be able to do anything. Let alone the military, baby. If the local,
I don't know who you think.
If a local security guard company, an armed forces security guard company,
you're done.
Turn their forces against you, a single home, you would be done. Let alone the weight of the U.S. military, who has tanks, weapons.
I don't understand everything, but that's the thing is, at first we were like, wow, the government has the ability to. I remember in the 90s when everyone was so like enamored and like, whoa, about the stealth bomber, a plane that could go undetected.
Yeah.
And that the U.S. government had the ability to do these things. And now we're going from the military to police officers being militarized, right? Police forces being militarized. And now private citizens are trying to militarize. And they have tanks and launchers and obviously machine guns and grenades and bombs. I don't want that and next door. Like, I don't want my kids, I ain't got no kids, but I don't want anybody's kids having to go.
Kids, yeah. Or me for myself. Yeah,
living next door to somebody with tanks and grenades.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry.
Because,
unlicensed. Without having to, with as few checks on that as possible. Maybe it's registered. Maybe it's not. Maybe they got it illegally. Maybe they printed it from their 3D printer.
Right? Yeah.
Because they're putting guns together now that are like printed.
But yeah, so anyway, I mean that's where our country's headed right now, and there's a lot of discourse on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram having these conversations about how they would like to have stricter gun laws. And then when I hear a lot of dissent from the other side, it's essentially just a lot of like, well, I just don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like the possibility of it seems like the people that are going in, the people that are using these guns, at least the ones that are making news, are the people who are going in to shoot people who are unarmed. This children, people in churches.
Very helpless people. Yeah,
helpless,
churches,
like
grocery stores, elementary schools.
Yeah, when people are, we're not hearing about, of course there are shootouts. Of course there are gang related things. Of course there are things where there's people having a shootout. But for the most part, what's making news as the people who, like you said, the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
A bunch of people sitting around unsuspecting. They're not expecting anybody to walk through the door with a gun, a knife, let alone an assault rifle. And so since this is what we're hearing, and these are the ones that we hear about, but in just a few days, there's like over the weekend, there was like 12 mass shootings. Yeah. Why are we... I just don't understand. Clearly something is wrong. And having mental health, when we bring up mental health, I think it's disingenuous when we hear politicians bring up mental health, because statistically, people with mental health are more likely to be the victims of violent crime, not perpetrators of violent crime.
Well, it's an attempt to, it's a deflection.
Of course it is.
I actually had a thought. I was wondering something.
What did you wonder?
Like, what is the answer to getting politicians out of the pockets of the NRA? Is it either one or maybe one
no
or two things?
Contributions.
Either making it completely illegal to
political contributions,
to give contributions from people like the NRA, or I wonder how what would be really telling? What would be very, very telling?
What
is if the opposition just outbid them and see how quick Ted Cruz switches up his opinion.
I mean, but that's an experiment.
I still don't want to give him the money, but I think that it would be very telling of where the morals are and where their
loyalty lie.
Yeah, because it's with the money.
It is with the money.
They're in the Green Party.
But why is it that these organizations, these groups are so? How is it that they're so rich?
I don't know how much a gun
costs.
How
is it that the NRA is like the richest thing?
I don't even know how much a gun costs.
It was like the gun lobby. It was like the gun lobby, the tobacco lobby. It's like the gun and tobacco
lobbies, because you have a lifelong client who can't not buy your thing without extreme attempts to stop. So tobacco, it makes sense because you have someone who's willing to smoke a pack a day, even in New York City where a pack costs $15.
$15.
If you can, if you are living near, I know people who are struggling artists in New York City smoking a pack a day. Do what they got to do to get those fucking packs of cigarettes. Also, now what I think is really interesting is how swiftly in Texas they have moved to ban drag shows before they did anything to ban
guns. It's in Texas now. We're still dealing the bodies, and forgive me, but the bodies of the victims in Uvalde, Texas, are not even all buried. The funerals have not all happened, so the bodies are still above ground. And you have a Texan legislator wanting to attack drag shows and trying. It's so transparently a ploy to change the subject that it's inappropriate to even the fact that you would even while the bodies are still warm, trying to deflect and make it almost like I just think it's an offense to the families and the people who we don't care about these people. We don't care about the lives that were lost. We don't care about the doing anything to protect people from having to be in that situation again. We're going to target drag queens.
Well, it's like they make it where they'll talk about this idea of protecting children. And I'm like, if you're trying to protect children, get rid of these guns.
Darling, I'm sorry. The drag revolution has that bus has left.
Liberated a lot of children, by the way.
It has absolutely liberated a lot of people, but we do drag. It's true. And if you're going to attack drag as just an overall general theme, then you'd have to go through to pretty much every single major partnership, every single major sponsor, every single major online platform, every single brand, all of them, because they've all been knocking on all of our doors lately. And if you go through and attack those industries, you're probably going to be attacking some of the industries that can provide money to your campaigns.
Well, we this is not like spoilers or anything, but
spoilers.
We just got a lot of backlash in St. George, Utah on We're Here. We were filming and we were in the news, all over the news, and they tried to ban our show, saying it was inappropriate, saying that it was that because we were.
What is inappropriate? Like under what basis? Just the fact that you're doing drag.
Just the fact that we're doing drag. That is it.
That's it. They don't know what it is.
They don't know.
And they're saying, they're probably saying drag is lewd.
Yeah. So we were performing near a children's museum. There was a children's museum like right next door to where we're performing. And they're like, the fact they would do this in front of the children, in front of
them.
Like,
what?
That's what I said. Well, what do you think we're doing?
Having sex. They think that you're having sex. They think that you're dressing in some kind of sexual gear and exposing yourself and performing sexual acts. That's what they think
They've clearly never been to a drag show before.
I mean, yes, there are some sexy numbers, but it's not any more than a regular strip show. And honestly, it's not any more than you'd see on a Britney Spears video.
Or Katy Perry. Or Cher or even Shania Twain.
Because guess what? There's probably a drag queen doing a Britney Spears or Katy Perry or Shania Twain number.
And there's probably a drag queen working on all their teams.
Hello.
Putting them up in drag.
Hello.
Zhuzhing them up.
You know what I mean? Cyclical. So yeah.
But it is well. So we got a lot of kickback, and they took it to the city council. They had a vote against whether or not we were going to be allowed to. I don't think they even had.
Did they vote?
They were just bringing it up. They were not able to stop our show.
How can you stop people from doing a private show?
It was in public.
Okay.
It was out in like a park. So they were really.
Did you have picketers that decided to show up?
No. I mean, the most we ever had was back in South Dakota. We had Watertown, South Dakota. We had some prayer warriors. And here's kind of my thing. If you're outside and you're praying for God's will in regards to this drag show, and the show goes off without a hitch, maybe God did as well. Like, I mean, maybe if you said, God, do your will, and then God made the show successful and people showed up and it touched people and it changed people's lives.
That was God's will.
I mean, I'm not religious, but if you're religious and you pray for God's will, maybe God did exactly what he wanted
God
to do.
Answered. God must have answered. That compared to the number of people who are touched and moved at a drag show, inspired at a drag performance, compared to the amount of mass shootings that we've had.
Also, not to mention that this all started when there was a tweet. How I'm going to put my.
I think it was Lauren Boebert.
Lauren Boebert, yeah. So Lauren Boebert tweeted out, "Take your children to church, not drag bars," which is so wild.
First of all, kids are not going to bars. Kids are not going to bars, bitch. Yeah. Excuse my language.
And if you see a child in a bar, it is an anomaly. It is I'm telling you.
It's illegal for children to be inside of bars. It's illegal for anyone to be under the age of 21 in a bar unless they have working papers.
How long you working
or
in
if
bars?
They're with, girl, 25 years.
And I've been doing it for 12 years. And when I tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a child.
I have seen a child in a bar once, and I couldn't believe it.
In 21 years.
It was in 21, yes, 24 years.
24 years.
I've seen a child in a bar, and let me tell you, it was not a drag bar or a gay bar. It was an Irish bar. It was on St. Patrick's Day, and maybe the child was with their mother or something. It did feel a little inappropriate, but that wasn't a drag bar. It was St. Patrick's Day, so what you gonna do?
Yeah, and the idea that children are somehow being either perverted or it's also got 74,000 likes. This tweet. Tatiana is the first tweet underneath, and she says, "Bitch, no kids are in bars. Shut up." Tatiana's always
Drag
quick with the
bars.
keyboard. But
What's a drag bar, Lauren? What's a drag bar? There's not even such thing as a drag bar.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there's gay bars that have drag shows, and that's you can. There's nothing wrong with a drag show in any type of a bar. First of all, second of all, there are drag shows at restaurants, and those restaurants are family restaurants. You're not going to have nudity or anything.
what they're gagging at these days too is that they're probably nervous because drag shows, as we know, are now in theaters, in cabaret spaces, in arenas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what scares them. But baby, children are not getting perverted or molested or touched
or killed.
You know where?
Let's talk about that. They're not getting killed.
You know where kids are getting perverted, molested, and touched? In churches.
Especially when you say take your kids to church. That's more of a risk. Yes.
I saw a statistic, and I cannot verify it, but it said that in the past 70 years, over 200,000 children have been abused in churches.
We already know. You don't even need the statistics on that. The amount of money that the Catholic Church has put into defending themselves, covering up, and then moving like a game of chess their clergy around.
Go watch the movie Doubt.
Yeah. Doubt. What's that movie with Mark Ruffalo about the breaking the Boston Globe story? It's so good about the breaking of the church. Just
with
Google Mark Ruffalo and Boston church scandal. It's so good, and it chronicles the moments leading up to the first.
It's called Spotlight.
Spotlight. It is so good. Anyway, yeah. How many times have you heard about anyone being hurt or molested at a drag show or shot?
You know, there was a very popular video online recently that and I felt it was really soul crushing. It was soul crushing.
What was that?
It was this woman came forward. She was a woman, but she came forward and she exposed the pastor in her church. And she says, when I was 16, you took my virginity. Right here in the church, in your office, at the age of 16.
Where was this? It was on YouTube.
It was on TikTok. And she's like crying.
She was saying it into the camera, or
she's
went to the
like
church?
she's like on the mic, like
at the church
during the service.
With the pastor.
And the pastor did not deny it. He just said, "You know what? It was a while. He was like just being like, I shouldn't have done that." And she's like, "I was 16 years old." And then the most perverted, disgusting thing happened, which was the congregation started saying, "We love you, pastor.
We love you, pastor."
And they gathered around him and started praying over him.
And left her alone.
And left her by herself. It was her and her husband. And she was an adult at the time, but I'm sure she felt like a child in this moment, watching the congregation. They all come there, all laying
shelter, protect him,
literally sheltering
him
from her. And he didn't even deny it. He was like,
she was a victim.
Yeah, he didn't even deny it because he knew he couldn't deny it.
And guess what? She was a victim when she's 16. Guess what? She's still, and I'm not categorizing her, but she still is in the category of a victim. I'm not saying that she's just a victim. She's a survivor, but she's still his victim, especially in his presence.
And the fact that they...
Are we clipping?
The fact that they had the audacity to actually like gather around that pastor and like stand up for him while she was...
We're going to play the video.
The pastor, what he was doing was he was admitting to adultery. And then she was like, it wasn't just adultery, baby.
Okay.
It was statutory.
I committed adultery. It was nearly 20 years ago. It continued far too long.
65-year-old Reverend John Lowe, who has been married to his wife Debbie for 45 years, poured out his heart to his congregation in Warsaw, Indiana during Sunday services, but it didn't quite go as he hoped.
I sinned. I need to say that, and you deserve to hear it.
Churchgoers rewarded him with a standing ovation, but things soon took a darker turn. A woman named Bobby Gephardt joined him on the altar, and said she was the woman involved, and the preacher was not telling the whole story.
I was just 16 when you took my virginity on your office floor. Do you remember that? I know you do. You did things to my teenage body that had never and should have never been done.
She said she had been traumatized for 20 years by her experience at his hands. Then the woman's husband, Nate, joined in and held up some jewelry.
This was Bobby's covenant of purity ring, which she wore while this man had sex with her, and she felt ashamed all these years.
It really feels like a lot of times these churches are doing everything in their power to protect their clergy.
Mm-hmm.
As
They
opposed
are.
to
They
protecting
are.
the victims.
What other power do they have? They use their money. They use their connections to relocate them, find them a new place, so that they can basically run from the law. And if anything, they'll maybe pay the victims some money to shut them up.
I mean, churches like that should automatically, in my opinion, lose their tax exempt status. And I think
But it's a system. It's not even a church.
I think all
it's an
churches should be
entire
paying taxes.
system.
That's just me.
I agree too. But the point is, churches are not most churches are safe. Most churches, most pastors are probably not child molesters. It's not every single one. I think most people have the experience of going to a church with their family. And it's not like if you go to church, you definitely will be molested.
It's just, and it's just like most people have the experience of being able to go to a school and not be involved in a mass shooting.
It's 100%.
But if there are precautions that we can take or steps that we can take to mitigate that and try to make sure that it doesn't happen, even on those rare occasions, then why would you not do that?
But in comparison to a drag show, most churches aren't safe, probably, in comparison to a drag show. But the fact that we want to deflect and pull attention away from what's happening right now it's just really telling about where some politicians and some legislators where their loyalties lie, like you said, and the fact that it seems like we're having more of a nuanced conversation about gun control and gun violence than we have in the past.
That is true. The conversation does keep getting better and better, and I hope that eventually that our Congresspeople can see that we are, in my opinion, so far behind the rest of the world in terms of gun control. And as a reminder, most people are not saying ban all guns. Most people are just saying ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons, like these. Any gun that can shoot 5 bullets in 1 second, you can't even hunt with that. It would turn the deer into Swiss cheese. It would pulverize the animal.
You're not hunting with that. And if you're 18. What are you doing with that? If you're under a certain age, why?
You can't even rent a car until you're 25.
You can't do most things. You can't even do. And so I just don't understand why. I don't understand it. I respect that people have different in opinion. I'm assuming that most people watching this are probably
liberal. Unless we did have that one video that landed on the wrong side of YouTube that one time.
Yeah. And so, but I do want to know, leave a comment. Let us know like what you think. Do you own a gun? Would you buy a gun? Would you buy an assault weapon? Would you buy an assault weapon with children in the house? And would you encourage your teenager to buy an assault weapon?
Was there a gun in your house growing up?
Never.
Me either. I had an aunt with a gun.
I don't know that. I actually don't know that because my grandfather was in the military. Mm-hmm. But if there was a gun in the house, my mom didn't have a gun. And so, but I lived with my grandparents part of the time. And I feel like my grandfather, he's the type of guy who would have had a gun, but he certainly would never have used it.
My mother didn't have a gun growing up. I do have an aunt who had a gun growing up. And let me tell you, were you able to get to it? Yes. One of my scariest memories that I remember was going over to my cousin's house, and then the parents weren't there. There were no adults. It was just us. And he was like, "Do you want to see my mom's gun?" And I was a child.
Isn't that that's usually the last thing people hear before something happens.
So I was a child, and I said, "Of course I want to see the gun." So me and my brother went to go look at the gun, right? Mm-hmm. And my cousin is like, it's on top of this shelf. So my cousin is like on a chair, basically doing,
feeling for the gun.
Can't see, just grabbing.
The gun is up on a shelf, just out in the loose.
Grabbing for a gun. And then he pulled the gun down, and I was very scared. I was at the door, like kind of hiding behind the door. And
you were smart.
And he and my brother were like looking at this gun, and
with their hand on the trigger.
I can't even. I was too scared to look.
Oh, jeez.
I was way too scared to look. But that is an experience that could have ended really, really poorly. like really, really poorly. And we didn't even we have to wrap up soon. But we didn't even have time to discuss the reaction or lack thereof of the police force while standing outside the elementary school while they were tasing and arresting parents. One woman even came forward and told her story about how she ran in and saved her 2 kids and ran out, but having to evade officers.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a story that some officers were inside
shouting out for kids.
Yeah. And then there was also stories that some officers, at least one officer may have gone inside to get their own kids, because these are people in the community.
I heard about this too.
And not others. And so we don't really know exactly what happened. And of course,
the one of the kids actually gave a recounting, and one of the stories
they saw the police coming in.
One of the stories the kid said was, and this was a kid told the story. He said that he heard a cop say, "Yell if you need help." And then one of the kids yelled and said,
and he left.
The kid said, "I need help." And then the
gunman came in
and killed the kid.
Yeah.
Who shouted for help. Because he was like, he was literally listening for, and then he came in, found the kid who shouted for help.
Did you hear that story from the teacher?
I heard it from the child.
The teacher who was in the other room, there's this heartbreaking interview, and if you're probably going to watch, you have a chance to watch the coverage that ABC and Disney did on gun violence. But one of the teachers, I can't remember his name, was in the room. He had 11 kids in his room. It's really emotional. 11 kids in his room. He told them to get under the table. And then he turned around and the shooter came in, shot the kids. And there's all of them, every single 11 children dead. And he got shot too, but survived. And he told them to play like they're sleeping. So they did. He shot the kids and him, and he stayed there. But he said he could hear, there was 2 rooms connected, and he had the gunman had just shot one room, came in, shot the kids that were asleep, like the 11 kids, and him. And then that's at that moment, a police officer said, "Shout if you need help," on his way out. The child said, "I need help." The gunman heard that, had just killed the 11 kids, went back into the room and shot the kid. And the teacher heard that. And
like the kid who survived or just went back?
He went back and shot in that room. And so I don't know, the stories are still coming out though.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These kids are traumatized. Talk about somewhere you never want to go.
You and I know someone who was a survivor of Columbine, and it really, to this day, he was one of the DJs in New York City. I'll tell you afterwards. And it he was actually an actual he was having it, and he still has and he's in his 40s now. Wow. And he still to this day is it just fucks me up to be in large spaces, to hear loud noises. And Columbine was in the 90s or early 2000s.
It was like 1999.
Yeah. And this is, it is 2021. And he was like, I'm still deeply, deeply affected by that and have a hard time being in public.
Yeah.
And then imagine how terrified he was after Pulse happened. He wasn't in Pulse, but now you work in gay bars. You survived a mass shooting. And then
there's another mass shooting. And at the time, that was the largest mass shooting in the United States.
I think it still is the most deaths of a mass. I think 49 people were killed in this mass shooting. Yeah. At Pulse. And so imagine surviving Columbine and then feeling
triggered every single time you hear about a mass shooting.
And now you hear about that happening in gay bars where you work.
Yeah.
So a lot of these politicians who are just clinging to their guns are, in my opinion, really not being remotely considerate of their constituents, of the lives of people who are terrified, people who've lost their life, people who have survived, people also, you have to realize too, not everyone who is shot not everyone dies. Some people are affected physically for the rest of their lives. Some people get shot and they're paralyzed.
Did you see that video of that guy? I saw it on.
He was like, "What do you do if you're
yeah." That was heartbreaking.
It is a video of a guy who's talking about gang violence. He's talking about gang violence specifically, and he's saying, "What do you do if your homie held down the block, but he got shot, but he didn't die?" And it's about will you
taking care of him? It's heart wrenching. I want to give a special shout out to albino kid Anthony Rapp. who kind of went up toe to toe against
If you don't
an
know,
author.
Anthony Rapp is an actor. He's currently in Star Trek. He was also the originator
Mark
of
and Rent.
Mark and Rent. That's like his most
He was
famous
also in The Adventures in Babysitting. If anybody saw that movie, you
and
should
your
check it
good
out.
man Charlie Brown. He
Yeah.
played Charlie Brown.
Yeah, on Broadway. But the he went toe to toe with a certain children's book author and her transphobia.
The British lady.
The British. And you know,
She who shall not be named.
She who shall not be named. He went toe to toe with her and some of her fans and her supporters. And it was really interesting. I don't want to speak out on this because I have a friend who's actually in this show, one of the Broadway shows that's written by her, the Broadway show that's written by her, or based on inspired by her book.
I have a friend in that show too.
Yeah, and the show posted on social media like LGBT pride. We're for you. We're with you. Everybody in Hogwarts or wherever the country city is that they are, whatever the thing is.
Hogwarts is
the
school.
store, wherever. Everybody in the place where they are is safe with us, and it just feels disingenuous not speaking out against her.
Well, there were a lot of cast members who did speak out against her. Daniel Radcliffe spoke out against her. The girl who plays Hermione spoke
But
out.
not the other redhead.
Yeah, did he not?
He was like, actually, I think she's a great lady.
Well, little Ron Weasley.
Yeah. Rupert Grint. Yeah.
So I wonder what it means for the actual organization, because I think there are at this point when it's something that large, there are probably parts of it that maybe have nothing to do with her.
Absolutely, but
I am very proud of the actors who came forward and were like,
absolutely not. Yeah, and I think it wouldn't take. She's back in the news again recently with some stuff. And
is it more transphobia?
Yeah, girl, it's the only transphobia. She does not speak out. I guess my issue.
You remember
is
the book she wrote? She wrote some book under like her pen name with about like a trans murder or something.
Yeah,
like something like that. I don't know a lot about it, so I can't really confirm it or not, but I've heard about it.
It's not just the transphobia, but it's also her lack. It's the transphobia caping for feminism, but not actually really coming out in other situations. Like, what are we doing when we're talking about Roe v. Wade?
Yeah.
Why are you silent, Miss Thing?
Also, if you think that trans women are the threat to women, what
is the patriarchy completely invisible to you?
I think anyone with a set of eyes probably knows that cis men are probably the biggest threat to.
That's the thing.
To women of all experiences.
But they're not willing to speak out against cis men. They're willing to speak out against trans women who they are basically calling cis men.
Yeah.
And
they make up these crazy scenarios that don't happen. What if they're in the bathroom trying to? They're
not.
There's zero accounts of that.
In fact, just like we were talking about the mental health situation, which is not exactly the same thing, trans people are more likely to be the victims of violent crimes and sexual attacks,
especially in the
out of the bathroom.
We
Yeah,
all know how much it takes for trans people to just go to the bathroom. I have a friend who identifies as non-binary, but they look very much manly, but they were assigned female at birth. But they just feel more comfortable in the women's bathroom because the men's restroom can be a
gross
and scary place, quite frankly.
Yeah, scary and gross.
So they went into they use all pronouns. They went into the women's room because that's where they've been going their whole lives, and it's where they feel the most comfortable and they feel like the least controversy.
And people were acting out.
So someone yelled out, "There's a man in the women's bathroom." Remember, this is an AFAB non-binary person.
And these people would never know.
So they're like, there's a man in the women's room. There's a man in here. And they're very tall. They're very tall. They're like 6'2". There's a man in here. There's a man in the women's room. And they're like outside the stall banging, trying to get this person to come out of the stall because they think that they're a cis man.
Cis man, okay.
I don't even know what they think. You know what I mean? As if someone's gonna dignify.
I don't even know if that's the appropriate behavior if it were a cis man. If they're in the bathroom stall, door locked, they're doing probably one of two things.
Right?
Now, if it's somebody who's sexually abusing you and going in and trying to get into your stall, or if they're in the corner masturbating or doing something illegal, then yes, call the cops. Get them out. Run out of the room. Don't even try to get them out of the room. Run out of the room yourself. If they're in the bathroom minding their own business, wiping their ass, and they've shut the door, you don't want the door to open.
But also, I don't even know where when you really sit back and think about it, I do not know where these conservatives want trans people to use the restroom.
They don't.
They want you to
basically
hide
come out
in your
and said
house.
they don't want you to be in public.
They don't want trans women
in women's room. They don't want them in the men's room, even though they don't really talk about it.
They just want you to just hide at home, and not come out.
Or
hold your piss until you fucking get home.
There have been some people who've been challenged on that and asked, quite frankly, where do you want them to go? And I've seen just anecdotally some politicians bold enough to say, you know what, actually, I don't care. I don't want them in either. And just because there's nowhere to go. Because eventually, if you follow the logic of this argument and conversation, it means allowing trans people, no matter what you do, we're talking about the trans folks in the bathroom conversation, then you end up having a trans person in the bathroom no matter what. Because they have to go to some bathroom.
And then when you start seeing like trans men in women's restrooms, and because you can't, you really, I know some people think they can. I can tell.
I'm special.
And sometimes you can tell if someone's trans. Sometimes you can't. So you probably have met dozens of trans people that you didn't even know were trans. You never even knew this about them. You know what I mean? So you can't just tell from looking at someone. There are tons of cis women who look like trans women. There are tons of cis men who look like trans men. Vice versa, flip flop and wibbity wobbity.
Wibbity wobbity. And you can't terrorizing people and chasing them down or coming up with rules that humiliate them for the sake of just like the principle of protecting what you're calling a womanhood and women, not womanhood, protecting women. And when we're talking about protecting women, we're talking about women who you say look like women. They don't look like trans women. They don't look like anything else. There's cis women, protecting cis women who fit typical, usually European beauty standards, right? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean, protecting white women? Because we're not really worried about protecting black women, because a lot of the people that you attack and say that they're not womanly enough are people who you know are cisgender black women. Michelle Obama. Remember how y'all cheated her?
Yep, and called her, and also
everything but a woman.
But then the disparaging thing of calling her a trans woman as if that is some sort of a pejorative, and then the double of disrespecting trans women and this specific one cis woman at the exact same time. It's so messy. It's
messy boots, and I just wish that certain children's book authors would have put as much energy into the Roe v. Wade using their platform to contribute to the Roe v. Wade conversation, and also using their platform and their energy into dismantling white supremacy.
Dr. Seuss. You're talking about Dr. Seuss, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Dr. Seuss. One fish, two fish, nigga.
Dr. Seuss is dead.
I just love you said certain children's book author. I just love that divot being Dr. Seuss. All right, listen, y'all. We have to run. Thank you so much for for listening to us chat. Listen, please comment below and let us know what you want to talk about next.
Yeah. Because we're gonna talk about it.
Who do you want to see join us here?
Yeah, if they're famous but not too famous, we can probably get them on this channel.
You think we'll give Michael R. Jackson to join us at some point?
You know what? First things first. Everybody watching, whether you follow him or not, first of all, go follow Michael R. Jackson.
No, Jordan.
Jackson? Michael Jackson. The living Michael Jackson. It's Michael Jackson. It's Michael Jackson. Yeah. Go follow Michael R. Jackson, and then tweet at them. I don't know pronouns these. Tweet at Michael R. Jackson. Bob and Peppermint want to have you on their show, and then we will reach out to Michael R. Jackson, and we will make it happen. If you'd like to see, but you first go and support Strange Loop. Go see it, tweet about it, buy the album, the cast album recording, and get familiar with it, because it's some good stuff. Yeah, that's what you got to do.
All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, comment below. Let us know what you want to talk about, what you want us to talk about next time, and maybe who you want to see on the show.
And before that, make sure you follow us on our social media. They are on the screen. Follow and support Black Queer Town Hall in any way you can, and keep your eyes peeled for some other events we have coming up in addition to this show.
Also, we're hoping to, we're hoping to actually do our first ever in-person event.
Soon. Eventually. Soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon. All right, bye, everyone.